Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we are unpacking what I think is one of the ultimate financial paradoxes of our time. We're going to explore why intelligence and education, the exact things that pretty much guarantee success in almost every other field, actually frequently fail when it comes to money. It's fascinating. So, let's dive right into a true story that literally shook the global financial world.
I want you to consider the sheer contrast between these two lives. On one side, we have Ronald Reed. For 25 years, this guy fixed cars as a rural gas station mechanic, and then he spent another 17 years just sweeping floors as a part-time janitor. He lived in a totally modest $12,000 home and even cut his own firewood. Okay, now on the other side, we have Richard Fuscone. This guy is a Harvard-educated business savant, a brilliant executive vice chairman at Merrill Lynch, living the absolute dream in an 11-bedroom mega mansion with multiple pools. I mean, we're talking about two entirely different universes here, right? But here is the massive, undeniable shocker. When Ronald Reed passed away at the age of 92, he made international breaking news. This rural janitor died with a staggering net worth of over $8 million. He actually left millions to his local library and hospital. Meanwhile, during that exact same time frame, Richard Fuscone, the Wall Street genius, was swallowed whole by the massive maintenance bills of his mega mansion and the 2008 financial crisis. He lost absolutely everything to Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So the crucial question is just staring us right in the face. How on earth does a man who sweeps floors for a living completely outperform one of the most powerful financial executives on Wall Street? How does that even happen? Well, this isn't just some crazy anomaly. It actually reveals a profound hidden secret about money that is basically never taught in traditional schools. Which brings us to our first core idea. Finance is not physics. It's the great equalizer. To really understand this, we have to completely shift our paradigm. Think about it. In fields like neurosurgery or rocket science, raw intelligence, complex data, and an elite education entirely dictate your results, right? An untrained person cannot just walk in and perform a successful brain surgery. It's literally impossible. But personal finance? It's the great equalizer. It is genuinely the only industry on earth where a completely uneducated person can utterly destroy a seasoned professional. As our source material points out, money isn't a science of formulas, spreadsheets, and charts. Money is a study of human behavior. Doing well financially is driven almost entirely by your psychology, your ego, your fear, and your emotional discipline. Ronald Reed didn't win the lottery. He didn't have any secret stock market formulas. He just understood himself. Let's break down the behavioral comparison. Ronald completely mastered his behavior. He consistently spent way less than he earned, and he just sat back and allowed the unstoppable force of economic growth to compound his small savings over 50 years. Richard, on the other hand, well, he let his genius get totally overshadowed by a complete lack of emotional control. He was driven by greed, by this overwhelming desire to showboat his immense wealth, and he took on massive speculative debt. At the end of the day, his supreme intelligence couldn't save him from his own ego. Next up, let's talk about the illusion of the perfect number. This leads us directly into a massive psychological trap that ensnares so many incredibly smart, high-earning people. We often fall victim to this concept known as the moving goalpost. If you ask someone how much money they need to actually feel safe, they'll give you a specific number, let's say $5,000 a month. But psychology shows us that the very moment you hit that $5,000, your mind just instantly recalibrates. You look around, you notice your peers are suddenly making $10,000, and all of a sudden, your previous dream income literally feels like poverty. Your lifestyle just inflates to match your new surroundings. And honestly, this is exactly why the hardest, most vital financial skill you can ever develop is getting that goalpost to just stop moving. You have to intentionally sit down and decide what enough looks like for you. Because if you don't, modern capitalism is incredibly efficient at capitalizing on human envy. It will absolutely keep you running on an endless, exhausting treadmill, making you feel completely broke regardless of how many millions are flowing into your bank account. Moving on to the price of anonymity, the silent millionaire. So let's bring the focus back to our guy, Ronald Reed, and dissect the exact mindset that allowed him to step off that endless treadmill and literally build a fortune from a minimum wage salary. His blueprint wasn't flashy at all. He didn't try to time the market, and he definitely wasn't out there trading risky options. Instead, he used simple dividend reinvestment. He bought rock-solid American blue-chip companies, places we all know, like Procter & Gamble, General Electric, and CVS. Basically, businesses that provided everyday utility. And then, he held them for decades, completely untouched by panic. He never sold a dime, even when the market crashed.
But I'll tell you his real superpower. It was this. True wealth requires you to be completely comfortable being anonymous. Ronald Read literally wore jackets held together by safety pins. He prioritized his actual bank balance and didn't care at all about getting validation from his neighbors. Meanwhile, so many people completely destroy their wealth-building capacity by taking out massive loans just to project a fake image of success to people they don't even really like. This brings us to a crucial concept: mastering your risk architecture. If you want to transition from mere financial survival to that kind of lasting, generational wealth we've been talking about, you have to master how you view risk. Most people approach investing by asking, oh, how much money can this make me? But the wealthy, they look through an inverted lens. They ask, what is the maximum amount of damage this investment can cause if everything goes completely wrong? They focus first on surviving the downside. To put that into perspective, we can break risk down into two distinct categories. First, you have volatile risk. This involves your normal up and down market swings and recessions. Honestly, this is entirely normal and actually completely necessary to earn long-term returns. But then you have ruinous risk, and this is a whole different beast. Ruinous risk involves massive leverage, borrowed money, or putting everything you have into a single speculative bet. The result of ruinous risk isn't just a temporary dip in your portfolio, it is a total, devastating wipeout to absolute zero. Now think back to Richard Foscone. Despite his Harvard education, he failed specifically because he exposed himself to ruinous risk. He just assumed his past successes guaranteed future returns, taking out massive lines of credit to bet heavily on luxurious real estate. So when the 2008 crash hit, his assets completely vanished, but his massive debts multiplied. The lesson here? Your personal financial architecture has to be designed to make you completely immune to ruinous risk. Now, let's look at the highest dividend money pays. Before we tie all these lessons together, I want you to pause for a second and think about your own life. What is the ultimate, true purpose of building wealth in the first place? It's really not the 20-room mansion. The absolute highest dividend that money pays, the greatest wealth metric that exists, is having complete control over your own time. True financial freedom is about buying options. It's the autonomy to escape a soul-crushing job, the ability to take 6 months off to care for a sick family member, or to simply wake up and dictate what you want to do with your day. Money is a tool to buy autonomy. It is not an instrument to build yourself a bigger cage of consumer debt. All right, here are the 3 rules of continuous wealth generation. So how do we actually systematically build that autonomy? Well, here is your practical blueprint. Law 1 is conservation. Honestly, it doesn't matter how much money you pull in if it all flows right back out the door. You absolutely must maintain that critical gap between your income and your ego. Wealth is built in the margin. If your earnings double but your expenses and your luxury purchases double right alongside them, your net worth just stays completely flat. You have got to conserve your cash flow. Moving on to Law 2, which is time aggregation. Look, compounding is an incredibly powerful force, but it requires an uninterrupted runway to actually take off. The stock market effectively acts as a machine that transfers wealth from the impatient straight to the patient. So stop looking for a weekend get-rich-quick trade. Consistent, year-after-year investing is exactly what lets time do all the heavy lifting for you. And finally, Law 3 is financial asymmetry. You really want to focus your extra capital and energy on bets that have strictly limited downsides, but potentially infinite upsides. Starting a digital business or investing small sums in high-growth assets. These mean the absolute maximum you can lose is a little bit of time or a tiny amount of capital. But the upside? Man, the upside has the potential to alter your entire ancestral wealth forever. Finally, we arrive at writing your own ending. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a stark reality. A rural janitor managed to achieve an $8 million empire using absolutely nothing but patience, discipline, and emotional control. And you know what that means? It means you have absolutely zero excuses. So which path are you currently walking? Are you accidentally building the fragile, ego-driven empire of Richard Foscone? Or are you quietly, consistently assembling the unshakable generational wealth of Ronald Read? The choice is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today, and definitely keep applying these principles to your own life.